After being disowned for a year, my mother got cancer and wants to talk. Help. Hello everyone, I have a problem and I don't know how to proceed. Here's the situation. My parents disowned me last year. It's been a little over a year now. This isn't the first time. They also disowned me 2 years ago for a few months. They came back to talk to me, and at first, it seemed like things were smoothed over, but of course they weren't. A bit about them. My father abused my mother for most of my life. She was always in his shadow, and we lived in fear. But that was considered okay because we had enough money, went on vacations, and had everything material we needed. Besides the physical violence, I wasn't fully aware of how deep the psychological scars were, until I met my long-term boyfriend. Being with him helped me realize just how problematic my parents' behavior towards me was. Daily control, constant belittling, treating me like I was 12 when I was actually 20. For the first time I started standing up for myself and behaving like an adult. At first, things were fine between them and my boyfriend, but that changed over time. My boyfriend and I went through rough patches, arguments, and even breakups, but we worked through them together. The first big issue arose when my boyfriend moved in with me in the city where we lived. This didn't align with my father's standards, meaning we didn't ask for his permission in person at his house, though we did call him. My boyfriend took over paying rent so that my parents wouldn't have any control over me, as I was still a student at the time. Later, we decided to leave the city and move to a rural area where my boyfriend inherited a house that needed work. We wanted to fix it up and make it our home. That's when my parents disowned me again. Eventually they came back, and after a lot of back and forth, we reconciled. But after some time, they started another cycle of manipulation and abuse, insulting where I lived, mocking me, saying I'd be stuck taking care of livestock and become a dumb country girl despite my education. They called me worthless, said my boyfriend had me under his control, was probably drugging me, and so on. During this, my boyfriend and I had a huge argument, and I decided to leave the house. There was a lot of yelling but no violence. My parents came to get me and I moved back in with them. They were overjoyed. Everything was fine for a while until my boyfriend reached out to my father, trying to explain that he was the one who suggested I leave, because our living conditions weren't ideal. We had no heating, no bathroom, etc. My father refused to listen and got even angrier, saying my boyfriend had no right to call him. My boyfriend then called me and I went to see him. I wanted to bring him home so we could all talk properly, but my father said my boyfriend could only kiss his feet before getting kicked out. He told me I had 2 choices: walk out the door and never return, or stay and block my boyfriend completely. I panicked, had a breakdown, and blocked my boyfriend, who had been waiting outside for me. For a month we had no contact. I moved in with my sister in a bigger town near where my boyfriend lived. One day, he came to her place just to hand me a letter and see me one last time. That's when I unblocked him, and we started talking occasionally. After a while, I realized I wanted to try again with him. When I told my parents, they said they would disown me again. They claimed he would beat me, throw me out like a dog, that I'd end up homeless, and they started cursing me. I stayed silent. Then, I realized, why do they think they can forbid a 23-year-old woman from seeing or reconciling with her partner? It was insane. Meanwhile, they either treated me like a princess or a servant. One moment they'd say, "You don't have to cook, you've cooked enough," and the next, "Why don't you cook? You're just sitting around." If I did cook, it was, "What, just one meal?" If I cooked more, it was, "That's nothing." My sister started spying on me and gave me a cleaning schedule. My parents showed up unannounced twice a week. That's when I fully realized how sick our relationship was, how it wasn't normal for someone to control a grown woman's life. What if I wanted to move, change jobs? Would they think they had the right to decide for me? Just like my whole childhood, where I lived in their shadow, afraid to even breathe differently for fear of their reaction. So I told them I was getting back together with him. Their response: "You'll only enter this house again in a coffin or on a stretcher." They called me a drug addict, mentally ill, cursed everything they ever gave me, and told me their doors were closed forever, even if my boyfriend killed me or threw me out on the street. I simply said, okay. Within days I moved out completely. They threatened everyone not to talk to me. They harassed my grandparents, checked their phones, monitored their messages, and yelled at them. My aunts eventually reached out, and when I saw my mother at a family wedding, I nodded at her, but she ignored me completely. My sister also cut off contact because I told her I wouldn't call her, to avoid her being harassed, but that I'd always answer if she called. Once I missed her call and she never called again. My grandparents secretly came to see me, but later my father found out because he has people in the village watching me. Now the twist. My mother has cancer. She had her uterus removed, and she's recovering. My grandparents are pushing for us to reconcile, and they accidentally gave her my new phone number. My parents are now claiming they have no issue with my boyfriend anymore. I understand why my grandparents want peace, but I can't erase everything that was said to me, or the year I spent completely alone. During this time, my boyfriend and I have struggled with rising costs and inflation, but we made our choice, and that's fine. Still, every time I think of my parents, I feel nothing but anger. A few days ago, my mother messaged me. I think enough time has passed, and it would be nice to meet and talk. I've been home resting, so why not? If you feel the same, let me know. Mom, I replied. I heard what happened. I hope you recover soon. If you want to talk, we can, but I don't see where that conversation would lead. Time alone won't erase everything that was said to me without a good reason. She answered. It wasn't right on either side. If you want to talk, let me know. That response infuriated me. I haven't replied in 10 days. I never insulted them or responded to any of their words, but they trashed my name and disrespected me entirely. I thought that was the end of it, but today she messaged again, asking to meet in a nearby town. My boyfriend says I should go since it can't get worse. I'm considering it, just to put an end to their constant calls and messages and to hear what they have to say. But the idea makes me deeply uncomfortable and anxious. I avoid conflict, and I don't know how to handle it. I'm afraid they'll manipulate me again, and I'll end up back in the same cycle. What do you think? I know this is a lot and you don't have the full picture, but please help me gain some perspective. Everyone around me just says, do what you think is right, or asks me if I could live with never seeing them again if something happened to them. But I don't even know how to deal with what's happening now, let alone hypothetical futures. I feel lost and overwhelmed. It seems so unfair that everyone expects me to make the effort, to visit, to talk, to lower my pride, when in the end I was the only one who was hurt.
So, the author gave us a lot of information responding to the comments from the community. Here's some questions and answers from the comment section. Say you'll go, but leave a letter addressed to them, with whatever you want to say. Go no contact. Quit answering them. They're probably trying to get you to come back and play maid and nurse now.
From what I hear, they are all one big happy family, helping my poor mother get better. They don't need me. I live nowhere near them, and I neither have the money nor the willingness to help her. I've been no contact for over a year. This is the first time they've reached out to me, aside from my grandparents.
Mom had a major health scare, and now she is trying to make sure she gets into heaven, which, by turning her back on you and failing to embrace the core Christian tenet of forgiveness, is not guaranteed. At the end of the day, they threw you away when you became inconvenient. If they were so worried about your health and safety, especially where your boyfriend is concerned, they would have tried to remain in your life to monitor from a distance at least. This is simply the newest attempt to bring you back into the fold so they can feel right with God.
I agree 100%. That's what I said exactly. If my daughter were in a possible abusive relationship, I would move next door. Not abandon her, and that's the biggest problem I have with them. We can't see eye to eye on what's good parenting.
What I hear, grandparents and your dad don't want to take care of your mom and want you to do it. Also, maybe you need to live on your own at college. You need to learn some independence and who you are.
I lived on my own. I finished college, and am now building a house with my partner. They do take care of her, as they are one strong family who never did anything wrong to each other. Even though this is false, they believe it.
Good on you. I read what you shared and my heart breaks for you from all the psychological, emotional, and verbal abuse you endured for years. You do not owe your egg donor and her flying monkeys any reconciliation and visits. You do not have to listen to your grandparents. No, time for you to do you. You wrote that she replied, I quote, "It wasn't right on either side. If you want to talk, let me know." Ugh, that sentence makes me want to throw up. It is nothing but full-on zero accountability and manipulation coming from her. This is my answer. Do not reply to that witch. Block her and her flying monkeys and cut them out forever. If you reply to that witch, you will be sucked back into becoming that witch's punching bag all over again. No more. Enough. Moving forward, you wrote you were building a house with your partner, right? Do lawyer up and create a will so that if something happens to you, that witch and her enabling flying monkeys cannot claim a slice of your money and fortune off you. Are you planning to have kids in the future? If you do, the minute you have a future child, go to a lawyer and ensure that custody of your child will go to the child's godparents, your partner's trusted relatives, or a friend you both trust, so that if anything happens to you both, the custody of future child will not go to your toxic family if they try contesting it at family court. That way you're protecting your future child from the cycle of abuse and dysfunction.
Thank you for seeing how messed up that sentence is. I can't say that enough. They do not have a right to this house and never will. Based on our experience so far, we can't have children. And if we do, trust me, I will make sure they don't have a chance to damage him.
Stop going back to them. You're stuck in a cycle of abuse. Tell your grandparents that you understand their reasoning, but they said and did things to you that no parent should do to a child. It's unacceptable. Cut them off for good. Someone else suggested writing a letter instead, and I agree. Sit down with your partner and write it out. He can help you process your feelings and offer input on what to put into it. Do not apologize. You did nothing wrong. As for your sister, I would simply say, it's clear to me that we've been stuck in this cycle of abuse from our parents. I'm done being abused. When you're ready to break the cycle, I'll be there, or you can say you won't be there. However you want to deal with it. Otherwise, this is the last time I'll speak to you. If she says she's going to break the cycle, I would give her one chance, and if she messes that up, cut her off.
I've said the same thing many times about my sister. I know she's young, manipulated, and maybe just can't see what's really happening. When I was leaving, I told her that one day she might understand why I had to do this. One of their biggest issues, the main reason for everything, was, how can you love your partner more than us? Why would you stand by him instead of us? I tried to explain that it's a different kind of love, but it never got through to them. If my sister ever does understand, I'll be there. I have no intention of apologizing. She thinks we're all in the wrong, but the truth is, I was the one who was disowned. I never disowned them. I was cursed, which in my culture is a huge no-no when it comes to family. I stayed silent. I was poor and cold while they had their dinners and vacations. They have no right to demand anything from me, and that is crystal clear in my mind. I've talked to my grandparents many times, saying exactly what you just did, but they're too stubborn in their ways. Thank you for listening to this story. Let me know in the comments if you agree with the community. What would you have done in that situation? And for those who stayed to the end, thank you. If you like this type of content, feel free to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. See you soon.